We're going to get started right at the top of the hour in just a few minutes, but I just want to say I hope everybody is enjoying the conference so far. There's some amazing and awesome presentations, so I hope it's really bringing you some interesting and great information about virtual worlds for education. Looks like it's just about time for us to begin, so I'm going to do one last minute voice test, and if you all would type a Y in the text chat if you're able to hear me, I'll let Sparky do a quick voice test too and make sure that both of us are being heard.
Hi, everybody.
Great, looks like we can be heard, and we're going to get started in just a second. We will be using both our voices and text as well, so hopefully everybody can participate. All right, let's begin. Welcome to Innovative Virtual Libraries, Research and Design. I'm Valerie Hill, and many of you know me as Valibrarian. You can simply call me Val in virtual worlds. And I'm the director of the Community Virtual Library in Second Life, which recently became a project of New Media Arts Incorporated. We use the abbreviation CVL. So if we say CVL, that simply means Community Virtual Library. And my co-presenter today is Sparky. She is an artist, designer, builder who serves on the CVL board. Sparky and I have worked closely on numerous community virtual library projects, which we believe illustrate the importance of teamwork and collaboration in virtual worlds. CVL has been an active educational hub for over 10 years. And just recently, with Sparky's help, and all of the other librarians who help the Community Virtual Library, we've moved to our new location with a clear vision of virtual world librarianship. Moving a virtual library in a virtual world was similar to the time that, as a school librarian, I had to pack up all the books in my physical world library because we were getting new carpet. We literally had to take every virtual object, book, shelf, table, or lamp, everything, one by one over to the new location. Of course, boxes of physical books are much heavier. The Community Virtual Library is a real library. It's located in a virtual world. We have traditional library resources, just as you would find in a physical library. Books, databases, reference services, library programs. But we also have immersive learning experiences that can only happen in a virtual world. Our library at CVL is led by information professionals, which means we have librarians who have a master's degree in library science, but it's also led by volunteers. Just as in a physical world library, librarians rely on friends of the library to make the library work. The current board of CVL took a close look as we were preparing this move to our new location, a close look at our goals, and we chose a vision statement. And our vision statement is virtual spaces for learning, resource sharing, and exploration. We consider virtual world communities to be resources. So when we're talking about sharing resources, we don't just mean sharing books, and we don't simply mean sharing landmarks to immersive learning spaces, but we also mean sharing communities, because communities for learning, they are a real important resource that can be found in virtual environments. In fact, you, the educators and creators of virtual content, and the communities that you serve in virtual worlds, those are essential to the best practices of education in virtual worlds. Our mission statement at the Community Virtual Library defines what CVL actually is. The Community Virtual Library is the hub that connects digital citizens in virtual worlds with the information and resources they seek. Now, notice the term there, digital citizen. We believe that we all live in digital culture, or what I like to call global participatory digital culture. And we learned this morning, if you went to Marie's presentation on digital literacy, how literacy has totally changed. And we have new information needs that differ from the needs of prior civilization. Connecting people is key in virtual worlds. Without connecting people, you don't even have a real learning environment. You're simply alone. I'm sure that many of you have experienced this entering a virtual world simulation all by yourself. And although this virtual world simulation may be beautiful and it may provide a real learning opportunity, it feels like a ghost town. If that's ever happened to you, would you type a Y in the text chat if you've ever gone into a beautiful place but nobody is there? And you just get this isolated feeling, because people are what make virtual worlds real learning spaces. We don't really learn in isolation. Vygotsky says we learn in collision with other people and other ideas. That's the way real deep learning takes place. There's a sense of presence in virtual worlds, and we all know that if we've been here a while, and that sense of presence and connectivity across distance, that may be the greatest advantage of virtual worlds. However, we cannot connect and collaborate across distance if we don't know where the people, the communities, and the high-quality content are located. And searching for communities and virtual learning environments can be really difficult in virtual worlds. So that is our goal as librarians, to organize and connect high-quality virtual communities for learning. Now, in order to reach that goal, the goal of connecting people, we needed a vision of librarianship in virtual worlds, understanding information science and information-seeking behavior. And we believe it also takes aesthetically pleasing design. Going into a virtual world that's just full of a lot of neon signs and clutter, it's just not eye-pleasing, and it also makes it very difficult to find the information you need. So we've discovered that each one of us working in virtual worlds, each of us has unique talents and skills and interests. We can't research information needs and design spaces to meet those needs alone, by ourselves, as individuals. So Sparky and I, what our goal is here today at our presentation is to share 3 of the examples that we've undertaken at the Community Virtual Library to collaborate on virtual world library design, and how these examples really show what it takes, that you can't do it alone. Sparky and I could not have done any of the things we're showing you by ourselves. first, we're going to demonstrate with our move to Libraryland on Cookie Island with space for you and your communities. And then we'll share our resource center that the Community Virtual Library built to support the Dickens Project, which is part of Shawnee Library, an annual holiday event that focuses on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And then finally, we want to share the new Digital Citizenship Museum in Kitely, which Marie here is the lead curator for the museum, which is going to have opportunities for all educators to share and to connect with digital literacy and all kinds of digital citizenship in another virtual world in Kitely. So thinking about our move to Cookie Island, I wanted to just share a little bit from the librarian perspective before I let Sparky tell you kind of through the eyes of an artist designer. It took our whole community of colleagues that worked with us to make this move, but we really had to collaborate and brainstorm to design a virtual world library. First of all, we had to have an overview of how the space is used. So Sparky began to ask me questions like, what do the groups in the communities using the library in a virtual world, what do they need? What kinds of spaces do they want? Resources are going to be delivered in what kinds of formats, she wondered. Because we do have links to books like ebooks and, the Gutenberg project. We also want to have virtual world exhibits and displays and library programs like you'd find in a physical library, links to databases, and we want slideshows and signage that's easy to follow and interactive content. So she was asking how should these resources be accessed? The Community Virtual Library, for example, now has, thanks to Sparky's artistic eye, books hanging from trees in a book orchard. Groups can meet around campfires or on a pier at the beach or underwater. Content can be delivered through audio, through video, and as you know, images and interactive simulations in virtual worlds. So Sparky began to give me her ideas on how this content, the library content, could be delivered with beautiful, artistic, aesthetically pleasing design. So Sparky, I want to hear a little bit about the perspective from the artist.
Hi, everybody. Innovative library space design collaboration from a designer perspective. It started with the innovative way that CVL thinks about libraries. Let me find my spot here. Since I started working with CVL almost 2 years ago, I've been inspired by the innovative way that CVL thinks about libraries, not only as collections of books or materials, but also as networks of communities of people learning, teaching, and sharing knowledge together. The new space on Libraryland, Cookie Island, opened up a lot of possibilities to incorporate all of those functions into the landscape. It was a large project, the space of about a half a sim. The parcels connect diagonally across the sim, which was an interesting challenge. It did offer us parts of all 4 coasts, though, which was great because we were able to take advantage of that to have basically 4 beach areas, or 2 distinct ones and another big long one. So that worked out fantastic. We started the layout process by, like what Val was talking about, we figured out, we had to define the overall functions that we needed, and then we had to review each area for the suitability of the purposes that we had envisioned. At every step, we shared the design layout proposals and updates with the CVL board, the new media arts board, also for feedback and brainstorming, resource recommendations and problem solving, and much more. So it really does take a lot of people to collaborate, especially to make sure that the design is meeting the vision of the organization. and it takes teamwork. Val's role is as the director and communicator of the CVL vision and much more. We also have many other volunteers who have contributed in their own unique ways, working as a team. My role is as designer builder. The designer's role is to interpret the aesthetic needs of the organization and design spaces in ways that serve the organization's vision, mission, and purpose. My goal was to create a sense of place, almost like it had always been there. I wanted it to flow and to be a comfortable space to be, whether as a small or large group or as an individual. The image you're seeing on the screen is Val and I having a design meeting on an off-sim island off the beach. So on the more detail side, we're managing a lot of details. And to coordinate those, we found that using shared Google Docs worked really well so we could communicate updates, questions we had, sketches, feedback, or ideas, inspirations. I mean, something you see in a magazine or somewhere else, maybe even in World, and take a screenshot so you can kind of say, hey, I kind of like that. Kind of like the feel of that. So it was really an open process of creating it. So that's how we proceeded, and then we did meet in World, like as I mentioned, for reviews, also to actually res things in place to see how does it feel when you really walk through it. It's one thing to have it on paper as a sketch, because sometimes that looks like, oh, that'll work great. But the other thing is to actually be there and walk through it and see how does that feel. Things do feel different as an avatar walking through a space. So we did that quite a bit. And also we had troubleshooting technical issues that we worked out along the way too, as you could probably imagine. It's always going to be technical stuff. The size and the scope of this project, it's a very good example of when collaboration is key, because it does take a team to pool their time, talents, and skills to make it happen. Once we identified all the items that that were to be moved from the old sim, we ran into an interesting challenge with ownership and perms of the objects, because over time, which they had been there quite a while, many objects had been placed by different people, wearing different group tags and all that kind of thing. So that was an interesting challenge, and Val set about contacting and coordinating all the owners who were still active in Second Life. Some objects turned out to be non-transferable, so there's nothing we could do with that unless the person wanted to come in and res it, but even so, that was a little bit awkward. Some were not copyable either, but some could be made copyable by the owner, so that way we could work with it and be able to place it. As a result, that's what got us looking at the legacy issues for groups and perms as we move forward, because we don't want to create future problems. We want to actually try to solve as many as we can now, so that legacy-wise, we're not running into things along the way that we hadn't known about. So that was a good lesson. Oh, and also Val transported, she moved, she was talking about her move earlier. She moved many, many, many boxes of books, right, Val? I don't know,
That's
probably
true.
at least 100, I guess.
Yep.
Quite a few books. So, and she put them all on the shelves. So that was quite a lot of work.
That's why I have some on my head.
Oh, yeah. The CVL, a big part of the design is managing change. The CVL library building has been part of CVL for many years, so it was there a long time. And we wanted to support members in making the new location seem familiar and comfortable. Val asked for feedback, and the group's preference was to use the existing library building that we already had rather than replace it because it felt like home. We also kept other objects and items that were important to the group's feelings of continuity and legacy, some special items that had meaning for people, so we wanted those in the landscape. We added a new beach deck on the back of the building. That was new to the library, called the Library Hub Pub for meetings, and that has been well received. The way the building fits on the new location also allows us to utilize the side of the building as well. On the exterior wall in the networking space, we placed boards with information about CVL and affiliates events, as well as treasure chests that you could click on to receive more full detailed information in a note card. Also, because the new sim had been the same for many, many years, we wanted the longtime residents there to also feel comfortable and that we respected their spaces. We met with the neighbors, introduced ourselves, let them know what we were planning, which parcels we would be building on, and we invited them to participate and collaborate in CVL activities. In the process of building itself, we were careful to be respectful of the spaces around neighbors. For example, leaving plenty of space around their properties, not coming right up to the property line that we, where our property lines were. We actually left a lot of space available for them so they didn't feel crowded. We listened to and elicited feedback. And we also communicated our plan to the residents, members, and visitors by putting up animated slideshow signs showing the proposed layout and example designs. Our goal was to help everyone be on the same page. And we hope that over the 6 months that it took, residents would have time to adjust as we built out each area. Aesthetically speaking, also, whenever we were adjacent to another parcel, I tried to use visual elements in the landscape in our parcel that echoed something about or added to something about the parcel next door so that the entire sim would have a cohesive feeling. Designing flexible multi-purpose spaces was our goal. Since we were waiting to, you don't know how things are going to evolve, but you want to provide for a lot of possibilities up front. Meeting spaces were designed to accommodate individuals, small groups, and large groups for the maximum flexibility of use. Some are larger or more formal. These include an underwater meeting space, 3 campfire areas near the beaches that seat 8 to 10 avatars, and an auditorium in the park that can seat 20 or so. There are also many other informal seating areas for 1 to 4 avatars placed around the sim and on the beach. The book orchard features free books, as Val mentioned, that are hanging from a tree, and it's in the park with a lot of different relaxing spaces to sit in and enjoy reading. Or feel free to do some Tai Chi with a friend. Both the library and the hub deck and the dance pier provide groups with the opportunity to include dancing activities and to select the music that they want to hear. To work around the problem of radio scripts which need to be updated constantly as radio streams change, and to allow the public to change the music channels, we found a jukebox that offers lots of channels and is constantly updated from a server. And once it's dated to the group, it can be set to the public. So that was a fantastic thing that is offered out there. So that was a little bit about the actual new sim. This is a little bit, I just want to talk a little bit about the Dickens project that we were part of. It was really an exciting opportunity to collaborate with Caledonia Sky Tower and to participate in the annual event that includes performance readings of A Christmas Carol. The whole sim was built as London in the 1850s, which was an incredible immersive environment to explore places in the story. So every place in the story had an area, and that's where the people would go during the reading, just be totally immersed within the story and the place. Our area that we were invited to participate in was kind of like an area of shops, and also Shawnee Library was in there too. And we were given 3 different shops, 3 different buildings that were of that style to display our content. One was an exhibit, which is the resource center. Then we had a Dickens library, which had a lot of great materials and books and things. And we also had a CVL information center where we could, show, give information about CVL and what we're up to. Val sent out a call for research proposals for the CVL Dickens project, and we got a lot of contributors who displayed fascinating research of the diverse aspects of life during Dickens' time in Victorian era London. So that was a fascinating experience, and I always learned something doing every different design project. This one was very interesting to me because of all the historic background and finding textures that were textures from that particular period. So that was really a fun thing to be part of, and we're looking forward to participating in that again. And I sure hope you'll join us this year. So thanks for your time.
I want to mention a little bit from the librarian's perspective on the Dickens Project. The Dickens Project has been presented for several years, many of you realize, by Shawnee Library, and for the past 2 years, CVL provided support through research presentations. Presenting research and resources, that's familiar territory for librarians, but to design it in this beautiful way, that was perfect for the artist's contribution. So this shows, that collaboration here between Sparky, the librarians, and the art design. CVL is also branching out to worlds beyond Second Life, and we want to talk a little bit about that. Of course, Second Life is still a great place for educators to begin to learn about virtual worlds because there are so many people and so much content already here, and our main branch will continue to be right here in Second Life. But we also believe that it's important to explore other places, and our Digital Citizenship Museum is going to be built in Kitely. And we had a digital citizenship exhibit in 2017, which was very successful. Digital citizenship is rapidly becoming an essential skill for students of all ages and for adults, really for everyone. So the Digital Citizenship Museum that we're building in Kitely is an ongoing and permanent museum where educators can add to particular elements of digital citizenship. There's going to be a tour scheduled, and I'll put that in the chat here, on March 23rd. The lead curator for the museum is Marie Vans here in our audience. And we're still open to people contributing content, so you can contact us later about our Digital Citizenship Museum in Kitely. It includes artificial intelligence, privacy, security, cybersecurity, how to evaluate online content in an age where you hear so much about fake news. Really everything from personal digital citizenship to understanding, cybersecurity in the greater world. We also want to talk a little bit today about accessibility. We were asked as librarians, well, what about those people who don't really have a great computer and they can't come into your virtual world library in Second Life? Or what about people who, find it just too difficult? For a decade now, we've heard about this steep learning curve of virtual worlds. A lot of people find it time-consuming and very challenging to navigate this virtual world landscape at first. Well, the Community Virtual Library is actively pursuing web-based virtual worlds like Cyber Lounge, which require no downloads and are easy to access on any laptop. Type a Y in the text chat if you have been in Cyber Lounge. Cyber Lounge, in fact, we're meeting with Selby Evans, which you know as Thinkerer Evans. He is with New Media Arts Incorporated, and he's a virtual world champion, as I mentioned earlier. We meet weekly on Mondays at 10 o'clock Pacific time, that's Second Life time. Our Monday Cyber Lounge meetings are a time to discuss the future of virtual worlds in an easy, web-based setting. And we can discuss the learning potential alongside the advantages and disadvantages of various virtual worlds. Anybody is welcome to join us on a Monday, and here's the link to come in. You simply click on it and you can enter as a guest. Of course, you'll realize that, after you've been in a virtual world a while and you create your avatar, which really becomes just your version of yourself, and you feel at home in that embodied version of yourself, it's kind of frustrating to go into a space like Cyber Lounge without much avatar customization. Type a Y in text chat if that's ever happened to you. You go into a different virtual world and you just don't feel like yourself because you don't have your avatar. So it's, we, after having been here for a while, you really identify with your avatar, and you find that I find that quite interesting, that's, you become yourself in a virtual world. So consider joining us on a Monday in Cyber Lounge just to kind of, talk in an easy space, even if you're on a laptop out and about somewhere. Another thing we really wanted to address as virtual world librarians is measurable outcomes. When we think about education in virtual worlds, we believe that research is needed, more research is needed, to understand how to measure student success in these new virtual spaces. Certainly, educators who have spent much time working in Second Life or other virtual worlds, we realize the power that they hold beyond what I call quick disposable apps. On mobile devices, you can create virtual content, digital content quickly and easily, but little deep critical learning takes place without a persistent environment like you would get in a virtual world. So some of the ways that CVL is looking at measurable outcomes are through gathering statistics, reports of visitors at our main branch, our reference desk, our exhibits, and other areas. Our monthly ACRL meetings, that's the Association of College and Research Libraries. That's part of the American Library Association. We've been having monthly meetings on the third Sunday of the month at noon for years, and we document the attendance. And many of the summaries of those ACRL Virtual World Interest Group meetings are documented on our blog. Also, new librarians, as they come in and explore virtual world libraries, and as new volunteers sign up to serve at our reference desk, we document those office hours and some of the different things that take place during those office hours. Maintaining and curating a virtual world database, that's our goal for the future, and that's going to be part of the archival of best practices of education in virtual worlds as they continue to grow and evolve and change. In fact, there's a session today at 4 o'clock Second Life time, right here at the conference, sharing our virtual world database that CVL is currently working on. Elise Donovan-Jones is the lead librarian on that database. Many of our programs and exhibits that educators contribute to the virtual library are archived through Machinima, and that also helps measure the progress and growth of virtual world. We have a playlist here that just shows a few of the different types of projects that have been sponsored by the Community Virtual Library. We also calculate and count our exhibit visitors, and we have 4 spaces now where you can sign up as educators to exhibit your work and perhaps put a teleport to landmarks of your virtual world communities. You can apply on our website for a specific time to exhibit your work at the community. For example, we had 3,800 visits at our digital citizenship exhibit, the one that we told you about in Second Life. We also had a virtual poetry garden which started during National Poetry Month in 2017. It was on display from May through December, and we had 2,114 visits at our virtual poetry garden. So, measurement is something that we really need to research more, how to document what's going on in virtual worlds. We wanted to talk a little bit about looking ahead and what's going to happen in the future as virtual world librarians that contribute to the best practices for education. Our goal today, the takeaway point that we'd like you to walk away from our presentation with, on this presentation on the research and design of a virtual world library, is that collaboration is key. Only through networking together as educators and promoting each other, advocating the work that we're doing, that's the only way that real learning communities can grow and expand and people can find them. Education on virtual worlds cannot be accomplished without a willingness for us to change and to grow together. Of course, in addition, we realize that virtual worlds are going to evolve and they're going to change. And this also means that we have to be willing to expand to other worlds, to other platforms, including the exploration of virtual reality. For a while there, I thought that maybe virtual reality, the headsets, and virtual worlds would merge. I really don't see that happening in the near future. I really believe, after having tried on all of them, the Vive, the Samsung Gear, the different headsets, currently virtual worlds hold more potential for education. If you agree, type a Y in the text chat. And the reason I think virtual worlds hold more attention, not enough research has been done on the human brain for young people and what those headsets do, first of all. And secondly, most of the virtual reality programs that are the different applications and games and things that the content creators are creating are slaying zombies. Slaying zombies and there's some beautiful things, but they're very isolated. You don't have that sense of presence with other people. It's, oh, sure, this is cool. I'm swimming with dolphins. This is beautiful, but I'm all alone. So I really feel the potential for virtual world education right now is much greater than virtual reality headsets. Who knows what will happen in 5 or 10 years, but we know that we have to be willing to grow and change as things evolve. Highlighting the great work of virtual world educators and content creators, that's our job. That is the new resource that we as librarians can share. Connecting communities as resources, that's our job as well. The potential for quality, immersive learning environments, we all know, you sitting here, we know it's amazing potential. But we often spend our time trying to reinvent the wheel because without networking with other communities who share our same goals, we don't realize that some of those even out there, some of the problems we're trying to solve somebody else has already tackled. So I know that some of you here are active affiliates of the Community Virtual Library, such as ISTE, Virtual Ability, Inspiration Island, the Nonprofit Commons, and many others. And connecting with all of you, that is what makes our library dynamic, and that's what's going to make us continue to be a dynamic learning space in the future. So we really want to reach out to other communities, and we want you to contact us later if you're interested in either volunteering at the Community Virtual Library or if you'd like us to promote the work you're doing through an exhibit or through lots of various ways. I think one of the biggest problems we have in virtual worlds sometimes is communicating, because think of all the communication channels we have. I'm going to type some of them right here in the text chat. We've got, our websites, of course, putting that in text chat. We have Facebook groups, we have Google Plus, we have Twitter, but not everybody uses Facebook. Not everybody uses Twitter. Not everybody catches up with the Google chat, the Google communities. Have in-world note cards and in-world groups that you can join. But, the more groups you join, the more incoming you have, and it's so hard to keep all that income. So I think that's another reason that we need to band together. Collaboration is key so that we can find better ways to promote the great virtual world educational content and communities that are already happening. So if you have ideas about that, contact us later. I'm still typing in the text chat some of the ways that you can connect with us. The main group that we're using is Second Life Library 2.0, just to get group notices. We're also part of the Alexandrian Free Library for notices, and of course on our website we have a calendar, which helps you connect with a lot of the programs going on at the Community Virtual Library. And if you were to have an exhibit on display in our library, that you just look on our website under exhibits, and that will come up. So we would be able to promote your exhibit in that way. So we wanted to leave a little bit of time here at the end of our presentation for some specific questions or comments about the future of virtual world libraries and education. And you can address them to everybody, or you can address them to the librarian perspective, or to the artist, builder, designer perspective, Sparky. And we hope that the two of us have really demonstrated that we could not possibly have done what we're doing alone. And while you're thinking of your question, I might say one more thing. We have a lot of groups that utilize the Community Virtual Library, and we are open to that, giving them a space. The great spaces Sparky designed, like the campfires, I just noticed some of the artists at the Art Study Group are here in the audience. The Art Study Group meets on Monday nights at a special little campfire Sparky designed just for them, Art Study Beach. And they can hang out there at sunset, talk about art. They talk about things like art philosophy, the major art movements, and they can share their artwork there. We're also soon to have a literature group that wants to meet at one of our campfires and talk about literature. So if you have a group that's looking for a space to meet for a specific time and talk about things, the Community Virtual Library is a perfect place for that. Just like in the physical world, a library is a little community hub where people can gather. So let's see, we have a question here.
Hey Val, looks like there's a question here that you would probably be very good at answering, because this person, oops, I just moved again. There's a variety of virtual worlds out there. Do you know if there's any organization that's working on how to bridge or translate from one environment to another? Or do you see it that way?
I see that Mal Burns here has said something about Discord servers. Can you elaborate on that? Discord server, I'm not familiar with that term, but that can address the bridging between one environment to another. I can also tell you that we're working at CVL to help people navigate these different landscapes. And by that, what I mean is, if you go to Cyber Lounge, which is just, oh, thank you for putting that in there. If you go to Cyber Lounge, it's easy, just web-based. We talk in Cyber Lounge about how to get to the various spaces, because sometimes people are like, well, how do you get to Kitely? Or how do you get to Avacon? And it's like, so we're also working in Kitely on a hypergrid library. And what that, and this is future, this is ongoing, what that library is going to be is a space where you can go and learn about other virtual worlds and how to hypergrid to them. So that's another, I don't know if that addresses your question so well, how to bridge and translate from one environment to the next, but it will be a way for people to learn how to navigate, at a new virtual world if they have never been there.
Another question, Val, I don't know if you saw it, but it's about Sansar.
Yes.
Venturing in.
Yes, I visited Sansar headquarters in Seattle. Linden Labs has a branch here in Seattle, although they're located in California. And when I went to the branch and I tried Sansar, of course, you can go in Second Life with the VR headset. But when you go in Second Life with a VR headset, it's very isolating. There's really no navigation tools whatsoever. You're simply able to observe and look around. Sansar and Second Life are two completely different programs, and Second Life has assured us, and some of you probably heard this at the when Ebby was talking the other day. Second Life is going to remain, and Sansar is going to remain two separate platforms. They have no plans to merge in the future. So, as I mentioned earlier, so far, in my opinion, the virtual reality headsets are much more of an individual experience. You can't really build in a virtual reality headset unless you're a designer and you want to learn Unity or Unreal Engine or some other program and then import your content. Here in Second Life and in all of the open sims and many virtual worlds, you can build. Anybody can build and connect and collaborate. That's a different model than VR, where you've got to really have some technical skills and you have to have separate programming skills to design VR. Correct me if I'm wrong, if there's anybody out there that really thinks they're going to mute. Maybe they're going to merge sometime in the future, but for now, I really stand by the statement that virtual worlds hold more potential for education than a VR headset.
And can I just pop in a little comment of the idea that using the technology, excuse me, as a designer, I think about using the technology in terms of how does it serve the audience. That's where it's all going to be custom at that point, because it's going to be who shows up at your sim. If it's an educational sim, are these people showing up that have a little experience with SL or none, for example, and how to accommodate that, how to accommodate wherever people are, so that they can actually participate and have, not be too overwhelmed by the tools. It's an ongoing question. I'd be interested to hear anybody else's ideas on that as well. I know that Virtual Ability has a good orientation center. I'm sure there are a lot of good ones out there. But for example, yes, that's great, because I remember when I first came into SL, and it's been a while now, but I always remember my beginner experiences because I always want to know how to relate to other beginners. And it really is a critical moment. They either bond with the technology at that point and they want to learn more and do the activity they came to do, or at that point, if they're not accommodated, the audience, I'm saying, they can just basically leave and say, that was it. I'm never doing that again. And so we just want to be so careful not to lose people. And that applies to accessibility issues too.
Absolutely, and virtual ability, finding places like that and promoting them, so that's exactly what we're talking about here today. It's like if somebody's got a great space to train people, then we need to use our time and talents in providing something else and utilize that, because that's that whole reinventing the wheel notion. Let's see if we have any other questions here that we have not addressed. Yes, Selby Thinkerer has some amazing content on his blog as well. And we talked about meeting in Cyber Lounge with him. He's so willing to give his time and his knowledge. And you can meet him at 10 o'clock Pacific time every Monday to just talk about everything about virtual worlds. And there's also some of the things we're talking about is importing content into these web-based worlds like web roles and cyber lounge. And that's something we're learning about importing content there, as well as sharing OR files and and some of those technical things we can't learn all of that ourselves. And so, we can share with each other about those technical skills. Absolutely. And Dieter has given us a CVL library. We actually have a library in Cyber Lounge, and we're going to be offering a tour of that because Dieter, Edward, is very generous with sharing for education and virtual worlds. And it's sort of a portal for new people to experience that sense of presence. And if you're still thinking of questions, one concept that comes to mind is what are some of the challenges that you as educators are having with virtual worlds? We're looking at, what can librarians do to support educators in virtual worlds? And we really need to know what those challenges are. I really still feel like one of the challenges is helping teachers understand what the potential is so they will be willing to take the time to address that steep learning curve. I'm glad to see Mel Burns talking about how things might be able to be more seamless in the future. Right now, we're so disjointed with all of our different communities in different spaces. And maybe with the hypergrid, at some point, it will be easier to jump across spaces.
Thanks so much for coming, everybody.
Welcome